Yep, that's a bottle of Penfolds Grange, 1993, and it's worth about $1,000 based on today's marketplace. It's the kind of product that you actually, if you had it, you want to see how old it is because with a bottle like this, as it gets older, if it's been cared for properly, the value is going to increase. It's on my mind today because, not because of the Grange, which I'm never going to drink, by the way. It's because we're in a cost of living crisis, cost of living crunch, whatever you want to call it. The media keeps telling us about it. They keep, trying to lobby politicians and just create a lot of noise about cost of living. So we worry about it. Our customers worry about it. And we get into a bit of a spiral. And, sky's falling and what's happening and all that sort of stuff. And, if you're feeling a bit kind of overwhelmed by the whole cost of living crisis, and it seems silly I'm talking about this with a bottle of Grange, but this was a gift from an airline many, many years ago, and I'm not a red wine drinker, and I just put it aside. So I'm digressing. Um, in all of this noise about cost of living, it's easy to get into a bit of a funk and say, I've got to do something. And so, you know, part of, I think, human nature is that we want someone else to fix our problems. So we call the bank and say, your costs are too high and I want to switch banks to go to somebody cheaper. Or if you've got a business loan, you want to find some place you can borrow money for a lower cost. Or you go to a supplier and say, you're charging me too much money for your products. I want a better deal. Give me a discount off wholesale. You make it someone else's problem, which is not uncommon. The most immediate value that I think, or certainly in my experience working with many different sorts of retailers, the most immediate value that I can see local small business retailers unlock is by looking at their business. And it's going to be in two, possibly three areas. One's going to be the roster, whether you are overloaded with paid business hours or rostered business hours. And part of that's going to be about the hours you open and close. Are you open the right hours? But also part of it's going to be the people you have rostered on and whether there's some trimming that can be done there. Trimming the roster is not necessarily the best move. The first move that I would take if I was, talking to you about your particular shop, I'd want to see how much dead stock you've got. Not the Grange, because that's not dead stock, but other stock you've got that's not selling at all. And based on your sales history, you can see probably isn't going to sell in the next, 6 or 12 months. Now, it very much depends on the type of business you're running. In some businesses, stock that's more than 3 months old is dead stock. In others, stock that's more than 6 months old is dead stock. You're going to know what the figure should be for your type of business, but figure out what that figure is. Then you can go and literally use the software to say, what have I got on the shelf that hasn't sold in the last 3 or 6 or 12 months where I've got stock sitting there? Because that stock is dead cash. Now, some retailers will say, I need to get my margin back, or I need to at least get my cost back. And I think that's the wrong way to look at it, to be honest. That stock sitting on your shelf is taking up space, taking up time, and it's cash that's locked up. And you're almost, in some circumstances, better off giving the stock away, freeing up the space, and creating an opportunity for potential growth in the business. Again, it depends very much on the nature of the business. The first thing I would do is figure out what the reasonable dead stock trigger is for your type of business. If you're not sure, start at 6 months. If you've got something in stock and you have not sold any of that item in 6 months, maybe that stock you should get rid of. Now, I was doing some work for a business recently, and that figure was over $20,000 in $130,000 worth of stock. $20,000 of it met their pretty generous criteria for dead stock. They probably could have gone harder and got a higher figure. But that's $20,000 invested in stock that's absolutely not performing and has got very little prospect of performing in their business. And so for me, that's a declutter opportunity. Quit the stock, sell it for whatever you need to sell it to quit, create the space, create opportunity, and then use that to pivot the business into some new traffic generating opportunity. And so while the immediate desire, if we're looking at the cost of living situation and the financial pressure on our business, while the immediate desire is going to be, get the bank involved, get the suppliers involved, get the landlord, and to all these other parties outside your control, you want them to help you. My advice would be to look at your situation, look at your dead stock first, get that under control. If you get that under control, then look at your opening hours, make sure that they're appropriate to the business. And then as part of that, look at your roster and make sure your roster is tight within your business. And I think if you do those things first, that will give you, first of all, confidence that you've worked on yourself. You've really taken care of your own business and got that right first. And then the next step is going to be, it'll empower you to then say to a supplier, if cash is still tight and you're feeling cash flow pressure and because of the economic situation, you can say, look, I've already done these things. I've worked on myself to the extent that I am able to work on myself. I'd really like you to help work with me on this business as well. It gives you a reason to urge them to assist you rather than just making them your first step. I think that's a really important thing to do from a business point of view. So yeah, have a look at your dead stock. It's really easy in the software. It's so dead easy, so simple. In our software, you can use the rank sales report and you'll use that with a couple of settings and you'll see what hasn't sold in the last 3, 6 or 12 months where you've got stock on hand. I bought a business about, um, 4.5 years ago. Been in the same family for 35 years, nearly 40 years. Bought the business and been in there for a few weeks. And then the manager contacted me and said, you're not going to believe what I've just found. And he found about probably $2,000 worth of stock in the business, which we didn't pay for when we bought it because it had kind of been lost in the way the shop was laid out. And it was stock that had come to them as new, was still in the box from the supplier, and they just lost track of it. So for them, it was dead stock, and the stock was over 20 years old. For us, it was dead as well. We had no purpose for it. It was useless. But no business should have that. You shouldn't have stock sitting in drawers. You shouldn't have it in a back room. You shouldn't have it unaccounted for. Stock's valuable. You want to track it when it comes in. You want to track it when it goes out. You want to do stock takes regularly and make sure you understand what's working and what's not. Because if you can do less of what's not working, the business will have more money and you'll feel less pressure in a cost of living crisis or economically challenging times. Really, that's my message today. Start with you, start with your stock, then look at your hours, then look at your roster. And then if you still need support, talk to your landlord, talk to your bank, talk to your financier, talk to your suppliers. But only do that once you've worked on yourself. You know, not all stock is dead. Not all old stock, I should say, is dead. But plenty is. And so I would say put in the work, use the software. That's what it's there for. Because that software, our software like our software, doesn't have to be our software, is going to help you identify quickly and easily those low-hanging fruit opportunities. That's what I say is worth doing. And that's a good starting point if you're feeling financial pressure. Now, I'm going to go and talk to somebody about whether they'll give me $1,000 for this bottle of Grange. Thanks for watching.